This podcast shares personal experiences only. It is not medical advice. Always speak with a qualified healthcare professional about your own healthcare decisions. Any treatments mentioned are part of personal stories and are not recommendations or promotion of any medicines. And you are very welcome along to another episode. We have music this week, Belinda, we can hear. Normally, I said before, we can't hear the music usually when we're recording. But anyway, I'll put in a bit more effort this week.
Yeah. It was especially for Sarah, though.
Yeah, because we have a guest. Sarah, you're very welcome to the dose. It's so lovely to have you here.
I love that music so much. I was very happy to
Yeah,
hear
it's so good.
I was watching a YouTube video recently. They had our music in the background, and I was like, oh, how dare ye?
Cheek.
Really?
It's not ours. We don't own it.
No, we don't own it. We have the license for it, don't get me wrong, but we don't.
Yeah.
We don't
don't
own it.
Yeah.
Belinda, how are things?
Good. I have no complaints at all for today.
Wow, there's a
I
fucking
know,
change.
but it's early.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Belinda, I have changed up my mug this week. I'm in a bid to finally get some approval for you in relation to the mug that I have when we record the podcast, right? So
Yeah, go on.
I don't have my Sports Direct one this week, which I'm devastated about. I actually, before that, I'll show you my drinks holder that I have though, right? So this is my drinks holder this week. Yeah, Sarah likes it. Thanks, Sarah.
Such a dope Paddy.
Wow. Folks, you need to look at the video. Actually, a lot of people are watching the video on Spotify. An awful lot of people are watching on Spotify.
You really
And
should.
Apple,
It's really good.
yeah, and a lot of people are, Apple are about to bring out the ability for videos on their podcast, which will be great too. Yeah. So Belinda, this is my mug this week. Okay, it's just a ceramic one. But let me tell you about this, right? This is a Bluetooth mug that is temperature controlled, and it has its own little base that I sit it on, and it will keep it at that temperature forever until that drink is gone.
TikTok much?
No, way higher, fancier
Really?
than that. Yeah, an Ember mug. Yeah, they're like I did not buy it. I got it from a previous place I used to work. But yeah, they're like 150 quid. Yeah.
My God.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I wouldn't
Can
spend that
I
much on a mug.
Listen,
I
I
need
suppose...
to tell you that you've sent me into an existential crisis over these mugs, right? Because I thought I was Team Belinda because I drink my coffee out of a tiny little mug. But then I thought, actually, when I drink tea, I drink it out of a giant one.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And I realised that I don't know which side of the camp I'm on. So you two have sent me into a spin.
Yeah, you're kind of your split camp, aren't you? I do like your big mug though. It's much nicer than Paddy's big mug.
Well, I do have another big mug. I don't have it here. I think I brought it downstairs.
You know
It's a big tall one that has a load of cats on it.
what?
It's actually,
You
I think
know
it's
what,
Peter's mam's.
that mug heater thing that you have, I can see where that would come in handy for like mums of a busy household and they never get to finish their coffee because it always goes cold and all that kind of stuff, or if you're busy in work or whatever.
You're never busy. What are you on about?
I know, I literally have nothing to do all day long. You watch it now.
And
Yes,
and also like for men that are working from home and like going through 10 empty half-drinking mugs of coffee a day, like.
Anyway, time to move on.
It's a hard life.
Wow.
Yeah. Sarah, you are so welcome. This has been a long time coming, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
want to?
much for having me.
You're so welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself then?
Yeah, sure. So
As Paddy would always say, what would be your elevator pitch about yourself?
no, don't make me do an elevator
You're
pitch. I
doing it.
can't get anything into an elevator pitch. I talk way too much for that.
Go on.
So I am Sarah. I am 43. I live in Yorkshire in England, and I have been on a medicated weight loss journey since January 2025, so about 13 months now. I have lost 7 stone and I feel great. I'm really well. It's been completely life-changing, like a real, it's been wild. It's been a wild ride. There's so much to say. So yeah, and I obviously have been a long time listener of the podcast. I am in Belinda's Next Chapter group, and I've worked
Since
with
May
since May.
2025.
Hey, oh my goodness!
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also worked with Paddy on the personal training side, and a long time lover of the movement room.
Oh.
So yeah, you two have been a real huge part of my journey. So it's
Oh, what a
such a pleasure
privilege.
to talk to you today. Like, I feel really lucky.
Same, absolutely the same, Sarah. And listen, so I remember speaking to you like back in the day when we started connecting first, and you would have said that your world has started to open up again
Yeah.
purely because of this journey that you're on.
Mm.
Like, give us an example of like a wow moment you would have had where your life now feels bigger than it would have done than previous.
Oh, there's been so
So
many.
many.
There's been so
Mm.
many, Belinda, and I think, like, this is a really core part of the journey for me, my world opening up. So, I've lived with obesity since I was a really small child, so I've been in a bigger body my whole life, and we all know how difficult and challenging that can be. But I had reached rock bottom in 2024, so I was the heaviest I'd ever been, and I was pretty sad and unhappy, and I'd chucked everything into work because it was the only place that I felt like I had any worth and that I was achieving. And so I was like really overcompensating by doing crazy hours at work. My mobility was restricted. I couldn't walk very well. I couldn't walk any distance without getting out of breath. I was just like miserable and waiting for help from the NHS here in the UK. I've been on a waiting list for over a year, and I had like an initial assessment in at Christmas 2024, and I was sort of describing my life and what I was able to do to a physiotherapist, and she turned around, sort of stopped taking notes, and looked at me and said, "You are living such a small life." And I was like really taken aback by that. First of all, that someone was able to say that to me, because that's quite a confronting thing for a healthcare practitioner to say to you. But she sort of stopped and said that to me, and I thought, fuck,
Shit.
like, fuck, I am.
She's right.
And this is
Mm.
not who I am. Like, this is not who I want to be. This is never who I've wanted to be. And I was not able to do anything that I wanted to do. I felt really restricted. And just everyday stuff was really hard. So, you know, Googling journeys from car parks to venues where you're meeting friends, trying to figure out what the seat sizes are like, paying out of my own pocket for first class train tickets because I knew I wouldn't fit in the seats and I'd take up other people's space,
Yeah.
like trying to get out of stuff all the time, making excuses and feeling shit about it. And I was just like, it all sort of crashed down on me that Christmas. And I thought, I cannot wait anymore for any help from anybody else. I'm going to have to do this myself. And I did a lot of research and found out about the GLP-1s and took the Manjaro. And then started, sorry, I'm waffling a bit here. I know
No, you're not.
you're
No.
asking me. I am getting there to what you asked me.
No, no.
I started taking the Manjaro, and honestly, it was almost instant. Like that night, something switched in my brain, and I was like, what is happening right
I
now?
know. And I can feel that because I felt that as well.
I was
Yeah.
like, I'm sort of shaking talking about it because I know, and I know not everybody gets this kind of reaction. So I'm really lucky, but almost instantly I had a sort of quieting, and like all the pathways in my brain started to converge around motivating me and like enabling me to do things that were going to make me feel better. As I took back control of my work situation and was really boundaried, I wanted to eat really healthy foods. I wanted to move more and like use the energy that I had. And I had this kind of like crazy few months, those first few months where I felt happy and content. And even though I was quite early in my weight loss journey, I felt really good. And I honestly cannot remember the last time, probably like decades, that I'd felt that well and that
Same.
happy. And that just blew my mind. Like, I was like happy to go cold water swimming, wild swimming. You know, the idea of doing that before would have been like terrifying to me, but I was just putting myself out there doing all these different things, and like the tiny little things are the things where you notice. So like having the space between your legs and the steering wheel, being able to cross your legs at your desk, like being able to walk into a shop and know that there are some clothes that are going to fit you. Like, not
And can
sorry, go on.
no, no, I just want to say one thing to you as well, because the hairs are standing on the back of my neck because you literally have explained my whole life, and that's how I was. And I think as well, something that you probably felt as well, that like, shit, I can actually look forward to the rest of my life. That I know for the first time in my life that I am going to lose weight, that I
Yeah,
am going to have longevity in my life, that I'm going to be healthier and better and just show up in my life 100% more than I ever have done. And I know that you've probably thought that as well.
I actually had sort of resigned myself to the fact that I was
Mm,
not gonna have a long life, and I knew that I was working myself into the ground and that I was not well, and I
mm.
had a switch in my brain where I thought, "Well, you know what? This is just what it is for you," and actually started to accept that a little bit, which is really scary, actually, and that is what switched. So something happened before I took the GLP-1. I think it was that You're Living a Small Life that really
Mm.
shook me out of it a bit, and I was like, "No, I do have things that I want to fight for here. I do have a lot of good things in my life that I need to fight for here," and the GLP-1 just enabled me to take that control, and it's the thing that has always been missing, right? So like, we've all been on this journey a lot. We have cycled and cycled. We know how to do diets. We know how to move our
We know
bodies.
everything.
And sometimes it just doesn't work, even though you're following all the rules they tell you to follow. And that is because we've been fighting a metabolic dysfunction that the medication levels the playing field with. And the realization of that, to know that, I'd accepted my fate, but actually this medication has proved to me that I have been fighting a physical health condition and a metabolic dysfunction that is not, I don't control that. That is not my fault. And that, um,
Almost that permission to allow yourself to acknowledge this isn't my fault, despite what society has told me for the all my entire life that this is my fault and I should feel shame and guilt and lesser. And I think that comment about you're living, say, such a small life, and that there's something, I know myself and Belinda have spoken before, that there's some irony that when we're in larger bodies, all we try and do is shrink to not be seen, like in rooms, in spaces, and stuff like that, which is yeah, mad when we think about the irony of that. But Sarah, I'd love to know, like you mentioned there about 2024 and about that kind of maybe being a turning point, a catalyst, yeah. But I'd love to know, when you think back to years ago when you were younger, when did you first become aware of, ooh, am I different because of my weight or my body compared to other girls or other people? Or what was that like for you when you were
I
younger?
was like 5 or 6 when I realized that.
Wow.
I'm gonna try not to cry now. So, like,
Yeah.
when I was
Jesus.
really little, I had enlarged tonsils and I couldn't eat properly, so I was actually underweight and malnourished. Just obviously my parents were doing their best, but I had a blockage, so I couldn't swallow food properly. So I was really underweight at a really formative, like a really important part of my development. And then when I had my tonsils out, my mum will say that I had no appetite regulation. I was just never full, and I would just eat and eat and eat because I hadn't been able to eat. So I don't know about the science of that, but there's clearly something, because at that point onwards, I put weight on. So even in primary school, really young, 5, 6, 7, I was overweight, and then I hit puberty, and I put even more weight on. And being in a bigger body in the 1990s was
When
horrendous. The belly chains, the low slung hip, and the toxic culture. And I always, from very little, have felt lesser, other, different and overcompensated throughout my childhood by trying to be funny, trying to please
Ugh.
other people, trying to be useful, trying to succeed at school and
People
do my
pleaser. People
best.
pleaser.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God,
Yeah.
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 The crazy thing is though, is that my whole family are in bigger bodies, but my mum has never ever engaged in diet culture. So when I was a kid, although I felt horrible and unattractive and unworthy, I was not put on the ringer of diets as a kid. So my mum never engaged in any of that, and in fact always would not let that stuff get in the way of us doing things. I distinctly
Oh,
remember her taking us to like a well-known outdoor camping, like outdoor style shop in the UK, and we were looking for some like waterproof trousers, and they had nothing that would fit either of us. And she got the manager over and she said, I just need you to know that people who live in bigger bodies do like to be outdoors too, and we
Love it.
deserve these clothes too. And in
oh
that
my goodness. And she
moment,
said it back
it,
then.
she
What?
did. She did. And in that moment, a tiny little embarrassment gave way to, she's so right about this. So it could have been worse, right? I could have been caught in that trap. It wasn't actually until I was 19, when I was at university, that I went to the doctor with a urine infection. This is classic. A lot of people will probably be able to relate to this.
Yeah.
It's because of your weight that you've got a urine infection. You need to lose weight. I prescribe Atkins. So I was put on the Atkins diet by my doctor. I had to go every week and get weighed. And guess what? I lost quite a lot of weight, right?
Same. I did
I
it.
bought something in Topshop for the first time, and I was like, this is it. I'm fixed. I'm normal. I'm buying clothes in Topshop. And of course, it didn't last very long. Inevitably, my body started to fight back. It wasn't sustainable, clearly. And I just put the weight back on in my 20s and then cycled round and round and round, putting weight back on, getting heavier. And the crazy thing about a lot of those diet rooms, those those diet clubs, is that when they get apps, you can see like years and years of your history, and you can
Yeah.
see the graphs going like this, where they're like, you lose weight, you put on more, you lose weight, you put on more. And you see the harm that has been done to you over
Mm,
those years, that it's actually a harmful intervention for
yeah.
us.
When I lived in, like, the UK has a bit of a, in one sense, which is good, the UK has a bit of a stronger culture of GP referral, and there's like there is a GP referral scheme in Ireland in terms of, say, between doctors and personal trainers or fitness centers and stuff like that. It's not very present though in a lot of surgeries in Ireland. In the UK, it would be a little bit more present in terms of sometimes a doctor might refer you to a local gym whereby you might get a discounted membership and you get to go to some classes or stuff like that. Ireland, whilst we have training for personal trainers for that, to have those programs, it's not something that I've heard frequently that doctors actually do. But I remember when I went to speak to a doctor at one point as well about my weight, and there was a GP referral for discounted Slimming World membership, and to join the gym, or Orlistat, or
Oh,
bariatric surgery. So they were the options that were given to me, as opposed to, hey, let's see, is there maybe some psychological support that we can put in place here for you? Is there like maybe some, let's approach things from there. Now, obviously, this was before there was broad awareness of like GLP-1s and all that kind of thing. They existed and were being used, obviously, but not in the way that they are now. But the instant go-to was, here, go join Slimming World, and here, go to this. And then when I went back another time, I say it was then, right, well, the only thing that I'll do for you is bariatric surgery. And I was like, God, I know that's
oh,
absolutely a route. It seemed like, is that literally the only thing that we have? And like, well, you can have Orlistat then. And that was,
disgusting.
Right.
that was a rocket ride in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
I
try that,
was,
Sarah?
No, I didn't. No,
oh God.
Yeah.
no, I didn't. I
I will,
just
and,
started.
and I think there's some things when you're on a weight loss journey, and like now, I guess there's the common bond of people that might be on Manjaro's, Epic, whatever the case might be, of like, oh, the diarrhea, the constipation, or the tummy, or this, that, and the other, or you having this, you having that.
Or
Yeah. So, well, I still can't relate to that one.
just
Um,
wow, you're lucky.
yeah. But I remember with the Orlistat, my experience of like you never could be far from a toilet. Just
No.
Ever, ever. It was
oh my
horrendous.
gosh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I
yeah.
knew I
when we
wouldn't have taken it even if they'd offered it to me because I knew about that and I just,
Yeah, you wouldn't be able
I
to
still
cope
have
with it.
a I was on Orlistat up until not long before I started Manjaro.
Were
were you, Paddy?
you?
Oh my God.
I still have a
God.
box of them in the cupboard here, and every time I open, it's kind of like, ooh, shudder.
That'll just tell you how desperate you were. Do you know what I mean? To
Well,
keep taking it, even though it had such horrible side effects.
Yeah,
No?
yeah.
Now, you
Um,
what you mentioned something there as well, Paddy, when you were at the doctor's and you were saying instead of maybe giving you some kind of psychological help, I would have been offered that as well when we lived in County Kilkenny, and I was given 10 visits to a therapist. And now I've been overweight, like yourself, everybody, since I was a child. I've always been overweight, I've always been bigger. So this isn't something new. This hasn't just happened to me. And I went to the therapist and I explained that. And say on my third, fourth visit, she wanted to speak about nothing, only when I had a miscarriage. And she was trying to say that, maybe you're overeating or emotionally eating because of this. And it's like, no, I've been like that since I was a child, a baby. Like, so why are you? And then I just didn't go back. I
yeah,
just,
and
but
it like
you need the right therapist though if you're going to go.
you
You can't
do.
just go to
yeah.
anybody, you know.
It's just a shame how in some instances for some medical professionals the go-to is always is it's your weight. It's like I
Mm,
have a sore thumb. It's not my weight. It's whatever. Like, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's yeah.
It's lack of
Um
interaction as well, isn't it? And then, of course, you don't want to go because you know what you're going to get, even though you know it's not
Mm,
connected to that. And you have got friends who are in like straight-sized, slim bodies who have got the same sciatica as you, and yet for you, it's your way. And it just puts people off, I think, from seeking medical help. It's so,
yeah, it's a
so
medical bias.
yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
Sarah, that stage when you mentioned then when you're about 19, maybe where you started to notice in college or uni, like that, the new environment you're in at that point, how did your relationship with your body or your weight um, progress then over those years in terms of was there changes in your behavior that were self-destructive? Was that when you started engaging maybe more so with, well, I'll try this slimming approach, or I'll do this, or I'll do that, or what were those years like when you were starting that kind of stage of life?
Uh, it was. I mean, it was really, it was a gate. The Atkins stuff was a gateway drug to me being in an endless trap of diet cycles and just being quite desperate because that first time that you lose weight, you suddenly think that okay, it's possible to do this. Of course, it's very difficult to maintain it, and that's the issue, isn't it? So
Mm,
you're sort of constantly chasing that initial weight loss. And I never really had a good relationship with my body. Like I never gave it any credit for what it was enabling me to do, despite the extra weight. It always inhibited me. I always, like even in my 20s, felt like just really ugly and like just always felt like the worst person in the room. It's kind of hard to explain, but like you just feel like a bit of a monster, don't you?
I used to
no,
feel like I don't deserve to be here
yeah,
because of my weight or because of how I
yeah.
look, and that was there's a snippet that sometimes I share from The Biggest Loser that still I will bawl my eyes out when I watch it. Like I've said this a few times and people don't
When
believe me.
you're
I've never,
the note,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, like I've never watched The Biggest Loser from start to finish because it's just brings up so much for me. Absolutely phenomenal experience, and equally people to be shocked when they hear I would do it again in the morning in a heartbeat. Absolutely, I would jump at it. But one of the bits was that bit of we to write, ourselves a letter and kind of burn it then to kind of signify saying bye to our old selves, and like that sense of inferiority to like other people, it was like debilitating almost, like in terms of not going to things, not wanting to be
Like
seen,
people would
like
hear you.
making up excuses, I'm like one time, again, I don't know if I mentioned this in the podcast, but I remember one night, one of my really, really good friends, Maggie, I don't know if I ever actually told Maggie this, but Maggie, had invited me in for her birthday party. We were both living over in England. I was in Reading. She was in London. We were both working in similar area in radio, media, that kind of stuff. And we were brilliant. Like, particularly when you're away from home and you meet someone from Ireland, you're like, oh my god, this is great. Like, and we're really good friends, and loved hanging out with her. And getting ready to go in, had bought new clothes and everything, as we often do. You know, we're in larger bodies because there's something on. You're like, oh, I want to try and make myself
Look
aesthetically look
present.
nice
Yeah.
Mm,
to cover to cover
Everything.
yeah.
to wallpaper my body essentially. And I had gotten ready, got up to when I was going out the door, I did that glance at the mirror, which was the worst thing I could have done, because the short walk then from the house up to the bus stop, all I could think about was how absolutely disgusting I looked. And I sat there at the bus stop just thinking, you look disgusting. You look, oh my God, what are you doing going in here? You know, into all these people that are going to be nicely dressed and look normal. And I left the bus stop and went home again and told Maggie, I think I know that I wasn't well, or that I lost my wallet. I think I said actually lost my wallet. I think it was something like that, that I couldn't get into London. And all because of that glance in the mirror as I was walking out the door.
And
Like,
there's
it's,
millions of people that can relate to that and that have done that over and over again. Yeah.
mm,
I
I
I
think,
will say what I feel when I walk into a room, well, what I used to feel when I walk into a room, or I get on a bus or an airplane or whatever, that my weight enters the room first. Not me as a person, as Belinda. It's my weight is the first thing that people see, people talk about, people get uncomfortable about. So I felt that looking back now, that, and you probably felt it as well, that people don't even know me as
yeah,
the proper person that I am, the real me. And I'm only like the life I'm living now is a fucking million times different than the life I was living then. You know,
it's the
it's
masking,
crazy.
isn't it? You do so much
Masking.
masking.
Oh my God, Sarah, yes.
I mean, that is exhausting.
Mm,
People at my work probably wouldn't have realized how psychologically unwell I was because I was
mm.
masking it in that environment. But I think the other thing about feeling about yourself in that way, which by the way is just so heartbreaking, like Paddy, that is so heartbreaking to me. And I can completely empathize and relate and have been in similar situations. I think then what happens is when other people start treating you that way, like you get into a toxic relationship or an environment that is really unhealthy, you just think, well, this is because this is what I'm worth. And it sort of takes over. And so then you get all this additional kind of trauma that comes from these, and like this happened to me in my 20s where I was
Oh,
stuff
same.
happened. And part, it's not all to do with that, but part of the reason why it's difficult to get out of those situations is because you feel so
Worthless.
worthless,
mm.
and like you start to depend on some of this other stuff to give you that
And,
self-worth.
and
It's
you
hard.
start to believe that it's
That's
true. It's
Yeah,
true what other people think
yeah.
or say, or even the unvalidated thoughts in our head that other people haven't said, but in our head we're thinking that this is what they're saying. That becomes your truth. So it does. Um, yeah, it's my and when so was your first attempt with the Atkins approach, was that what we would call, say, your most successful in quotes, kind of back then, or did you have various attempts that had other degrees of, I
this is
won't say success, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah, like the amount of weight you've lost, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, so obviously I was small. Sorry, my light keeps going on and off because it's on off. Like, um, yeah. So obviously, because it's my first weight loss attempt as well. Whenever you do something for the first time, that you lose
It's
more, don't
great.
you? But I
Yeah.
wasn't as big. So, and it's this thing, isn't it? When you look back and you look at how humongous you felt in that moment, and you think, crikey, I'm still chasing to be that size again. But um I probably lost like 2 or 3 stone on that, and that was enough to like get me into a size 16 at Topshop. That's the smallest I got. And then I did, so I've done all the diets, obviously. And then I had a similar amount of weight loss, maybe 3.5 stone with Slimming World in my 20s. And then it just kept getting less and less and less, but my weight was going up and up. So even the successes, I was never bringing me back to where I was. And it, by the time I hit my late 30s, any attempt to do Slimming World or Weight Watchers or any of those, and I would shift maybe 3 pounds, and I'd be like, I'm following these rules. I'm a very
What
like,
is
I
wrong
know,
with me?
why is nothing going? And you just feel so hopeless, don't you? You just feel
This was the thing that I found interesting, was that like every time, like I said, I tried Weight Watchers once ever in my life, and I put weight on. So I was like, I'm never doing that again. And that's when I was about maybe 19, maybe 19 or 20, something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. And then Slimming World was the one for me that I always lost weight with it, and I
mm,
never found it, I'll say, overly difficult. Now, I will be the first to say, though, I did not follow the whole food thing, because I was like, look, and I know this is more so to do with energy balance, but this gives me a bit more structure for what I need right now. And I did like somewhat the going into the group and having a group of people around me. Not so much the penguin clapping, but like I enjoyed having an
community.
element of community. Yeah, I did.
Mm.
And I know, Belinda, we've often spoke multiple times about the different experiences of groups. And again, the leader, like I was very lucky that the first time I joined Slimming World in England, the leader was such an amazing human. And the last time I did Slimming World here in Sligo, where I live, the leader here was phenomenal. So, and that was more so the humans as opposed to the program, if you get me. But I always found, oh, yay, I always lose weight when I do Slimming World. But I was still in that cycle.
Cycle.
Always. I would do it. And then as soon as I'd stop it, it'd be like, oh, all the weight comes back on again, because it's
Hmm.
not, whatever about the flaws in their methodology of eat as much of this, there's nothing you can eat as much of. And anyway, that's a whole rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
like, it wasn't a long-term solution. So it wasn't for me, do you
No,
know?
but the thing
And
is that none of those diets, none of the Atkins, none of the keto, none of the Slimming Worlds, the Weight Watchers, any of those things for people living with the chronic, repetitive, or yeah, the chronic disease
Relapsing.
of
Yes,
relapsing disease of obesity. None of those things are ever going to work. And I think as the sooner people realize that for themselves and go and seek proper support, then the sooner they can start living their lives
yeah,
again, because I have what I call the 4 R's that we were stuck in. I'm sure you've heard me say them, and it's re restrict, relapse, regain, repeat. And that is it. The 4 R's. 3 decades for me, 2 decades for you, Sarah, probably 2.5 for you, Paddy. And
easily.
people, yeah, easily. And there, lads, we're not talking about fucking weeks, months, or years. We're talking about decades. A decade is 10 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we did that for all of that time, and it fucked up our metabolic health
it did.
all the way through as well, and that's what made it harder and harder and harder every single time. Where I got to the point that you did as well, Sarah, of acceptance. And that point of acceptance for me, and I'm sure it was for you as well, was the scariest moment.
Yeah.
You know, I had decided that I was going to go out and I was going to buy clothes that fitted my body properly. I was going to get myself a uniform of, say, 7 different tops, 7 different bottoms, and that's all I would need to wear. I would stop going to Slimming World. I would stop trying. I would go out and walk my dog because my dog needed walking, but that was it. But with that as well came the acceptance that I wasn't going to live as long as my peers or my partner, or I wasn't going to be around for when the kids in the house have kids of their own and stuff. And that is absolutely fucking awful.
Yeah. And
Awful.
like, for me, that was saying, like, I would, like, my husband Peter, he smoked when I met him. He smoked like all of the time, up until, yeah. So Peter was a smoker, and I would, like, you never say to somebody, oh, you should give this up or that up or whatever, like, no, because it's their life, it's their thing, it's their journey, they have to make that decision, I think is what I'm trying to get to. And I have seen, like, say, other people in my family who give up cigarettes, and again, it had to be their decision as opposed to just because someone else said to. So, like, I would never have approached that conversation with Peter of, oh, Peter, I'm worried about your health, give up cigarettes, because I always would have been like, it's his thing that he needs to own. And there was that time then I would feel like such a hypocrite, because I'd be like, well, I'm here worrying about Peter's health. What am I, what about me? Like, turn this mirror back on myself here a bit more. And it was the more and more that I sat with that, because I was kind of thinking, oh God, I don't want, say, to live a life where, like, I've lost Peter before his time because of smoking. And then it's like, wait a minute, the fucking double standards here, Paddy. Have a chat to yourself. Yes, you've a problem with weight, you always have, but really, like, what are you doing about it today? What are you actually doing about it today? And this is where it's like, okay, well, what's actually the impact of this weight? And I said, that's where, as you were saying there, Belinda, like, that piece of, fuck, this, whatever I was looking at the time was like potentially between like 10 to 15 years less. And I was like, okay, going by the averages of how long, say, a man lives in Ireland and stuff like that, I'm like, that could have me dead in my late 60s. I'm like, oh my God. And that was the first time ever in my life, I think, that I was viewing things through almost that kind of longevity. And maybe it's an age thing. Like, I'm 44 this year. So maybe it was that, approaching middle age, that kind of, thinking a bit more grander rather than just how I look, rather than just this, that, or the other. But yeah, it's scary, I think, when but that still is a very strong thing about my why. And we'll always talk about, I think it's so important about, well, what is your why for on this journey? You're and this is something we've a podcast coming out, or actually by the time this comes out, it will have been out with Nikki.
Yes,
And like,
Nikki.
part of that, if folks haven't listened to it, go back and listen. Would have been out like 2 weeks ago, I think, or something like that now. But it is talking about connecting with your why, about why is it you started this journey? Because for 99% of us, it's not because I just want to fit in clothes and I want to look
No,
nice and everything.
it's
That'll be
not
part of
aesthetic.
it. That'll be part of it, absolutely. But usually it will be things like, I'm worried that I may die younger, or I'm worried that I won't be there for my kids, or I can't currently run around with my kids, or this condition, or I want to try for kids, whatever the case might be. And it's so important, I think, that we spend time truly sitting with that why, because when we talk about motivation is not the thing that keeps us going. It
Yeah,
comes and
it's
goes.
an yeah, it's an
Do you know?
emotion. It's not, you can't
Yeah,
depend on it for anything. And Sarah, what did because you mentioned acceptance as well. So what did that
Yeah.
look like for you? And how
I
long ago was that?
so that's that's a really interesting question. It's been quite a long journey with that acceptance, right? So I think
Yeah.
maybe in my like early to mid 30s,
Mm.
I was so obviously I'd been cycling a lot with diets and stuff, and I was actually at a conference for work. So I'm a health researcher, ironically. Being a health researcher in a bigger body is also quite interesting, but that's probably for another day. And I was at a conference with a lot of slim people who were talking about obesity. And I was like intensely uncomfortable because I was like, fuck, I feel like everyone's going to look at me because this is all about obesity. But this professor put this slide up. He just had one slide, and the slide was this map, this visual map, like a spider diagram, mind map type thing, if you can imagine, like in the middle obesity, and then out of it loads of lines with all the different factors that influence people getting obesity. And there was psychology, environment, genetics, physiology, and it was massive, and it was a fucking mess. Like, it was this crazy, like, twirly cloud of thing. And I sat there and I looked at it and I thought, fucking hell, sorry for the language. I thought,
it's
oh
fucking
my
awful, Sarah.
God,
How dare you?
sorry, I know,
Give it the fuck
sorry. I'm
over.
probably going to let my parents listen to this now, but anyway, I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh my God, this isn't all my fault. And that was like maybe 10 years ago that I saw that, and I suddenly I had this moment where I was like in tears at this conference. It was quite embarrassing, but and so I was like, okay, so I'm fighting some stuff here that's beyond my control. And the diets weren't working. And so for a little while, I kind of thought, right, I'm gonna like inhabit this bigger body in a really positive way. And I kind of got into body positivity stuff, followed a load of influencers, tried to like really embrace this. I'm, you know, the chairs don't fit me, but I'm going to try and sit in them anyway. I'm going to try and take up space. And it didn't last very long because it's just so hard to do that. And so I'd come to a point where I'd accepted that I was big and I was always going to be big. And then I just kept getting more unwell and unable to do stuff. And that's when the
Restrictions.
acceptance shift, yeah, and nothing was working and I was hopeless. And that's when my acceptance shifted into this is never going to change. You're going to die sooner than everybody else. You're slowly going to stop being able to do things. It's probably going to impact on your work at some point, and like things are going to, and you sort of like accept that instead. And
Mm,
that's the bit
easier.
that's scary, Belinda, in the way that you were describing, where you start to, you realize that, but you think, okay, that's what's going to happen, and you're not
End off
fighting.
like. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got no fight left.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
so
you've got,
tired. You're
like,
so
it's
fucking exhausted.
tried so hard, and it's just like nothing works. And this is, you know, so even though I'd started to get to a place where I knew that it wasn't all my own fault, I still felt hopeless, and I'd accepted that
Mm,
until that moment where somebody said to me, "You live in a small life," and it just
yeah.
snapped me out. It just snapped me out of it because I was like, "This is not who I am at my core."
Are who you are the life you want to
No.
live. Yeah.
No, it's not, no, and I, you know, I have an amazing husband, Andrew, who is, like, so supportive of me and has loved me and will always love me, whatever size I am. He adores me, and, like, I have
Oh,
that in my life. I am so lucky to have that, and why would I not be fighting for myself when I've got that? And in
yeah.
my family, like, I'm really lucky, and so, um I don't know what I would have done if the GLP-1 hadn't worked. I think I probably would have gone to bariatric surgery, even
Mm,
though
Mm.
I never, ever,
We
ever
were
wanted
the same,
to do
I
that.
think.
I was
mm.
terrified.
Mm.
I genuinely thought that's where I was gonna end up if the GLP
And
hadn't worked.
Sarah, I know you mentioned like when you were younger, your mum was not
Yeah,
like in that space of diet culture, which is really
so
great to hear.
mm.
Um, I'd love to know, was there ever a point, either family or your husband or other people, would anyone ever have said to you that they were concerned about your weight, like outside of the medical world?
So Andrew would my husband definitely wouldn't have. We both, you know, he's also in a bigger body, so we've talked about it as a collective a lot. But
Mm.
he never would have said, "I'm worried specifically about you." And I don't think, you know, it's such a sensitive issue. And I'm quite bolshy with my family, so I think if they had said that to me, I would have been like,
Yeah,
"Oh no, you can't talk to me like this." So I
I'm
don't.
exactly the
I'm
same, yeah.
sure they were I'm sure they were thinking it. I'm
Mm.
sure they were thinking it, but I
yeah,
never got any pressure from my immediate family to be thinking about that and to be made and because of course they're all in their own struggles as well.
yeah.
Mm.
It's
So
an interesting one because it's sometimes, if like some of the interviews that I've done, say with some of the press here in Ireland, that sometimes they'll ask, oh, if you're a friend or family member and you're worried about somebody and their weight, how should you approach it? And I'm always like, oh God, I don't know. Like even when it's from the best of intentions, like, and I still don't know what the right answer is there. I still don't know what the right answer is.
I really just think that it's people feel so in the wider public when they don't know you so well feel so happy and easy to comment on your weight and your body and to say
Yeah,
things. So it's such a weird like contradiction,
particularly on
isn't
social media.
yeah,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I think for me, like, I would have always been hugely defensive about that right up until
Mm.
recently, because I was at a point where I was not ready to receive anything from anybody about this because I'd
Yeah.
had so
But
much shit from it.
you know what I think as well is that, like, say, Patty, if you were saying, like, a reporter would ask you, how should somebody approach, if they're worried? Like, don't.
Yeah,
Do you
Yeah,
honestly think, in what world do you think that a person living with obesity is not aware that they're fucking
exactly.
living with obesity and their life is shit and their life is harder and that they could die sooner than everybody else? Every single person knows that. We're not walking
I know, but
around.
is
Ugh.
is there a space
Say,
though? And I don't think it's a case of say. telling someone, "Oh, here, do you know you're fat?" I don't think it's that thing. I think it's more so a case of,
But we know,
I guess,
Paddy,
that
we know
olive
all.
branch of, I want to be your support
Yourself.
network.
Yeah.
That's very different, though.
Yeah. So how would you approach that conversation? If somebody has them themselves brought up about weight, and you can see, because again, I would even recently, I have friends that said to me, "Hey, there's this person that I'm friends with." Actually, I had a really good conversation with somebody. They're like, "I have a friend that is very, very, very overweight, very obese. I know it bothers them. They've not said it to me, but I know it does. But I don't know how to start that conversation with them to let them know that I'm here to support them if there's anything I can do to help them." How does that? Yeah, where'd you go with that? Like, yeah,
I don't, it's
like
a
there's someone
minefield.
there.
It's an actual
Yeah.
minefield, though, because it depends on so many factors. There are so many moving parts in that, where it's how, like, what kind of support are you going to give them? How are you going to bring that up? And how do you think that that person is going to take it? Are they, is it going to land well, or are they going to go like, what the fuck, like, get out of my face? I don't know. It is a minefield, and you don't know until you're in that situation with that person. And you can't, I think, determine how people are going to take it
I completely agree, and I think it is a really
because
tricky
of
thing.
masking.
Yeah, masking. I think maybe one way to do it is to be a bit is if you feel comfortable to be open about your own experience. So if you're coming at
Mm,
this with lived experience of it, and
Mm,
it's different for our friends and loved ones who have not ever experienced obesity, that is, I think, slightly more challenging. But for those
mm,
of us who have lived it, but I mean, I guess the thing that is interesting to me is that I've never really had around me other people who are overweight or obese in my friendship circles and groups.
mm.
And so I've never really had that solidarity or no, that's
mm,
not true. I have had good friends. Sorry, that's not the right thing to say, but that shared
The lived
lived
experience of
experience,
obesity.
which
Yeah.
is yeah, which is why I think for those of us who have like because you're trying to like not draw attention to being bigger, so I'm struggling to articulate here, but I think
No, no,
that's
I know
why
what you mean. Yeah.
mm,
so many of us in this journey turn to social media and influencers and to find that community
mhm,
and to find that sense of shared lived experience. And what's interesting to me is that since the GLP-1s have been more available and more people are talking, like you are talking about your experiences and not just about the medication and weight loss, but actually much
mm,
more about living with obesity, about weight stigma, about confidence, about this stuff that actually those of us who have not necessarily had that in our immediate real life circles are now realizing that these are not individual lonely experiences
Yeah.
that people have that they felt like so many people have know exactly what you mean when you say I can cross my legs
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or I can
don't.
park in a car park without like doing loops trying to find the widest one because I'm worried I'm
Yes,
not going to be able to get out or back
yes,
again.
Or how
yeah,
normal it is now, when like you're talking to people that are on medicate, like say weight loss medication, and just instantly there's no shame now with like constipation, diarrhea.
Yeah,
It's just like, yeah, the constipation, yeah, and you're just
yes,
like,
like the video you just put out.
oh, it's
So
gas.
funny.
Like it's just
Yeah,
like, and that is good. And I think that thing is helping to break down some of those kind of barriers. But with
yeah.
the friends thing, Sarah, have you noticed as you've lost weight, have any of your friends started to treat you differently?
I think
I think
in
we've spoken about this, actually, myself and yourself.
yeah, I think people in my wider circle, and it's difficult to know, right? So it's difficult to know whether it's because I'm happier and I'm giving off more vibes, positive vibes that people seem to connect to me in different ways. I mean, I think there are some challenges in some of my relationships where this sort of flourishing sounds, but
Yeah.
like this flourishing that I've had and this sort of like um I'm less willing to kind of compromise on stuff, and I'm
Hmm.
a bit more forthright about what I want to do and what I need is a little bit uncomfortable because historically I would be very, "I'll do whatever you wanna do." And then I've got
I don't
do you know what
mind.
I mean?
I'm easy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
or I really, really, really don't wanna do this, and it's scaring the shit out of me, but I'm gonna have to do it because I can't say I can't do this because 'cause I'm too fat, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna not be able to do you know what I mean? It's like yeah, it's
when
a
I when
real
I just kind
unraveling.
of I just said to Belinda and my friends, like, this for me, I guess, has been that journey of me knowing my worth. Belinda's probably sick to death of me saying this, but it is how
Know
I kind of
your worth.
literally, and I don't mean financially. I always say that. I mean, like, in terms of who is worth your time, who is worth your headspace, who is worth compromise, who is not. So like that kind of, and that's the way I kind of, the journey that I've been on, I guess, is that piece of know your worth, and who is worth things and not worth things, or whatever the case might be, and supporting you.
Your time.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And like you start because you feel worth something now, right? And you
yes,
feel connected, like you feel connected to your body and your mind in a way that is not clouded by all this fog. You're willing to like actually advocate a little bit for yourself. And I think that is uncomfortable for some people. I do
yeah,
think that is, and it
Yeah,
can
of
be
course it is,
uncomfortable for us.
because the thing is, Sarah, that those people have known you as one singular way all of the time that they've known you. And now all of a sudden you are losing weight and you're becoming more confident and you're, able to articulate what you want for yourself. But some people find that extremely uncomfortable, and some people will step away as well, and I think the other thing we spoke about as well was, you know, when you're in your friends group and you feel a bit stuck with doing what's best for you and ruining the fun for everybody else because you were so used to just going with the flow to make things easier. But now you're stepping back, looking at the situation and thinking, well, what's best for me in this situation? People don't like that. That's big change. That's massive, you
mm,
know?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it is, and I think it's like really important that people change, like whether they're on a weight loss journey or not. Like all of us, as we get older, we change. People fall away, people come into our lives, and I think we have to try not to internalize that as this is all because I've changed all the time.
Hmm.
It isn't always that. It's just life is a bit like that, I think, and it's a bit too easy to pin it all on as like, oh, this is because I've changed. This person doesn't want to be around me anymore. But I think it's holding on to like, who are you right now, and what does feel right for you, and feeling confident to articulate that and know your worth. I think is absolutely
Yes.
right.
and
Yeah.
Sarah, you mentioned the weight management, like in the NHS and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I know people in Ireland probably won't be
Mhm.
overly familiar. Like, we do have some weight management offerings. Very few people kind of would get to engage with that. Similar in England though, via the NHS, like in terms of the formal kind of different tiered approaches. I'd love to know if you could share maybe a little bit of insight about what is the weight management kind of
Right.
services, the different tiers, what that was like for you. Like, is it the case you just go to your doctor a couple of times and like, oh yeah, grand, here, we'll pop you over to this. How long does it take? Yeah, just any kind of
Sure.
insight into that. Yeah.
Because it's quite a big step actually to go to your GP and say, "I want some help with my weight." So, like, that for me was a huge step, so obviously and things change all the time, don't they, with the way that services are run, but so we have this, like, 4-tier service in the NHS, so there's, like, awareness raising at tier 1, and then tier 2 is, like, referrals into Slimming Worlds, maybe a gym referral. It's like you having to go yourself or like self-directed like online plans you can follow. And then there's tier 3, which is what I'm in at the moment, and then there's which I'll talk about in a sec, and then there's tier 4, which is bariatric surgery. So the tier 3 is like your last stop shop before the bariatric surgery, so you can't get into tier 4 without having done tier 3, and that is a year-long commitment where you have 3 months of group-based counselling, physio sessions, and group-based sessions with a dietitian. So you have like 12 weeks of that. And then you have follow-ups over the course, and you've got access to this multidisciplinary team for that year. So it is good in the sense that I can email a dietitian now and say, I'm not sure I'm getting enough fiber. Can you help me? And I've got that support. What they can't do is prescribe GLP-1 medications. So they're giving you all this information and tools and strategies, which some of it we already know, and they know that we know because we've all been through the ringer for so many times. You know, we know what vegetables are, etc. So you do learn something. There's always useful, but very few of us have had access to a dietitian before, so that is actually quite helpful. And when they're very sort of uh, they understand obesity and they see it as a disease and a long-term health condition, that it can be really, really great. But they can't prescribe the GLP-1s. It's like the elephant in the room. Do you know what I mean? Because half the
And
people
does
are
that
on it.
does
And so they're sort of taking you down this pathway of assessing you to see whether you're eligible for bariatric surgery. What's really interesting for me is, so I've actually ruled myself out now because I've reduced my BMI so much. Like, because my BMI was like 63 when I know we don't care about BMI and it's a kind of useless metric, but as a proxy for kind of where you're at, that's what they use to decide whether you can get into any of these services. So I was 63 when I started and I'm like 40 now. It's crazy how much that has gone down. So I've
Wow,
ruled
my
myself
God.
out. So I can't, it's not even an option if I wanted it right now. But
Fab.
once you've been through the tier three, you don't have to do it again. So if in the future you did want to explore bariatric surgery, you can. Now it's a bit of a postcode lottery in England, depending on where you
that's just
live.
going to say, does that impact the access to the medicated support? Like, if there was somebody in a tier 3 in another part of the UK, might they be offered a medicated support?
No, because they've
Okay.
really, so you basically have to have a lot of health conditions. So you sleep apnea, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart failure, and something else to be eligible for it on the NHS.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's or and diabetes, obviously. So
Yeah.
they've, even for diabetics, they've really tightened up the criteria for getting it, and actually accessing the tier 3 support. You know, you have to be able to demonstrate to your GP that you've done a lot of dieting and you've engaged like and been faithful
Yeah.
to these systems in order to get through the door. And I do think there's still a bit of a, you know, it kind of depends on who you see, what kind of response you're going to get to asking for help, which is really sad. It shouldn't be that way. Um,
So, at any point in tier 3, then, did anyone say to you, well, we think that GLP-1 medication would be
no, I asked Belinda. So obviously,
right?
it was the first thing I asked was like, please, can we have a GLP-1? And at that point, when I had my assessment and they told me I was living a small life, and I asked about it and they said they couldn't prescribe them, I thought, right, I'm going to go private here. But I did use them to say, like, so can you just tell me, am I safe to take this? Because they've got access. You know, I saw the endocrinologist consultant like person and he
Wow.
was like, if I could prescribe this for you, I would. I think you'll
Okay.
benefit. I think you should go ahead, but just know that we can't give you any support with it because it's not on an NHS prescription. So although I'm in the tier 3 weight management service and I'm taking a GLP-1, I
You
can't
can.
go to them about that medication because they're not prescribing it. So
Right.
despite having all of that around me, and I'm very lucky to be in that position, when I first started taking the GLP-1, I was lost because I was like, I've done a lot of research here, and I'm lucky because I can access academic papers and stuff through my role and my job. So I'd done a lot of research and I was as educated as I could be, but the hard science stuff doesn't really tell you how to live in this way,
Mm.
which is when, so I thought, I'm safe to take it. I'm going to do it. They can't help me. Where do I go for help here? That is how I found The Dose, the podcast.
Ah,
I love true crime podcasts. That's all I ever use now.
same. Oh my
All I
God, me
listen to
too.
now is GLP-1 podcasts. But I found you. You're the first thing I found when I searched on Apple Podcasts, and I binged your entire back catalogue. Binged it. Loved it.
Belinda, that's down all to the SEO work and all the analytical work that you do in the podcast, Belinda.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Patty.
Thanks. You're amazing. Like, you know.
Oh,
Yeah. Um,
Honestly, I would have been totally lost without it. It really, you two have just
resonated.
been, yeah, and just like even though I hadn't met either of you at that point, I just felt like I was part of there's something with you. And like, you know, I know you're not there to give you know, that's not what this podcast is about. It's
Yeah.
about what's the experience like, what are the tips from your journey and your experience. And it was so helpful to me, like hugely, hugely.
Oh,
I
thank you,
know a lot
Sarah.
I know a lot of your listeners feel the same way.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
bless. Thanks
Seriously.
so much.
Thank you.
So, Sarah, where things are right now,
Right now, yeah.
what
Mm.
is life as of
What?
today? What is, if you were to think ahead, like say this time next year,
Yeah, where do you see
or the year
yourself?
after, like what?
Yeah. Isn't it exciting even to be able to have those
Yeah,
bloody
Yeah.
what's
thoughts?
your thoughts about where you'd
Wild.
hope that life would be?
So, please God, it keeps working.
Mm.
So, I I've hit a bit of a so I've lost 7 stone now, and I'm sort of I'm slowing down. So,
Same.
like, I've been a super responder to Manjaro, so I have had consistent weight loss for months, and as I got to the last kind of month and few side effects as well, so a bit like Paddy, it's not everybody's
Yeah.
experience. I've been
Mm,
really lucky that it really,
Took
really
off.
suited my physiology, yeah. And so I'm slowing down a bit. I've been on holiday, it's been Christmas, so I'm fluctuating around that 7 stone mark. So, but I'm only on 10 milligrams at the moment. So I've got another couple of doses in the bag, like if I need to go up. So and I've never set myself a goal. I never thought I could lose 7 stone.
Yeah.
I've never lost that amount of weight before. And I feel so good. And I'm trying to convince myself that if I didn't lose any more weight from this moment, even though I am still considered very overweight, I'm living my life now in a way that I never could have imagined would have been possible. And I am so much happier. Don't get me wrong, it's still really tricky. And the head sometimes doesn't quite catch up with where we're at. And the slowing down is quite scary. And so that's why the supports around you are really important. I would like to lose more weight. I don't think I'm ever going to be a slim person, but I would like to lose a couple more dress sizes. I really, really want to be able to do some more strength-based activities. So I really want to go climbing, and I'd quite like to have a go at like snowboarding and like doing some sporty things. So I really want to keep building on the movement stuff and build my strength to be able to do some of these things that I will still be in a bigger body, but that I will feel confident and strong enough and like it's my right to do this stuff. So I'm really trying to focus on those kinds of goals a bit more, and to be able to like travel on planes and stuff. Oh, sorry.
okay.
That's the back.
You're fine.
That's the Back to the Future thing. I think like I'm trying not to be too prescriptive about what the next year looks like. I really just want to continue building on the good habits that I've got and the consistency that I've experienced. And I know that I'm going to have to start making changes again because I've lost so much weight now that I need to up my movement some more. So I actually got my proper gym induction this afternoon. So I'm
Fab.
Yeah,
properly
yeah.
going for it with a personal trainer in the gym, which is terrifying. But Paddy has set me up for this.
Oh,
I
you
have
are
like,
going to
do
love
this.
it.
Yeah. So I think, and it's just, I think it's holding your nerve a bit, isn't it, when you get into this stage of the journey? The glory days are slightly behind us. I remember Paddy, you saying to me a few months ago, you're like, you're still losing £2 a week. Oh, that is just, I remember those days. And I
Oh,
remember
you
thinking, this
lucky
is never
duck.
going to end. Yeah, and it has. So I think it's just adjusting to this new normal still. And this is, Belinda, where you come in with all the next chapter stuff. You know, how do we like continue to reflect on where we're at and like and remember how far we've come and stay grounded and like believe in ourselves and think about what's important, and that just holding your nerve and just keep going. And I think, sorry, I'm rambling, but the other thing
No.
is that if this stops working, so if the Manjaro stops working for me, I feel like it's not the end of the world because of all the new medications that are being testing and are on the horizon, and because of all the science that's happening with GLP-1s. like, I just feel
This is
like
not the end.
it
This
is
is
a chronic
literally the
disease.
beginning.
Yes, it is a chronic relapsing disease. There is a chance that something's gonna happen here that I'm not gonna like, but there are gonna be other options, and I'm
Yeah.
fortunate enough that I would be able to explore those. So I'm just trying to think, like, you know what? You can have a bit of hope for once in your life, Sarah.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have some hope here that you're not gonna end up back where you were, because I think that's the thing that scares all of us the most, is if I end up back where I was again for the
My
80th,
God.
100th time, that's it, I'm done.
Yep. Yep.
So I
Done.
cannot let that, I've got to try and, like, remember that that's unlikely to happen because of all the positive things that are emerging, and this community that we've got and the resources we've
And
got.
it's getting bigger. This online community is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like you were saying a moment ago, Sarah, that, this 7 stone that you've lost, if this is as far as it goes for you, then you can still live in that body. And that's where I am right now as well. But I know my body is getting stronger. I know that my mental health is getting better. I know that all my relationships are better because of all of that. So it's fine. Like, if I don't lose another pound, I can live in this body.
Yeah.
But you know,
And Sarah, I guess to maybe bring things to an end as such, I'd if you were to think back and say 19-year-old Sarah
Mm.
or Sarah of 2024, what do you wish you could say to that version of Sarah?
It's gonna make me cry now, Paddy. I think, oh God, I've done so well to not cry.
you're
Like,
allowed.
set
Yeah.
me off. I think I would just say, like, hold on, because it is gonna be okay.
Yeah. Such a long time though, isn't it? That's
It
20
is.
years ago, Sarah.
Yeah.
Such a long time. Yeah.
It is a long time, and it's a lot. I think I don't use this word lightly, but it is a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we will have experienced, where it just feels like the world is not set up for you and doesn't want you there.
But
So,
it's not
like,
that's not a
I think,
feeling, that's truth.
yeah, it is. It is. And I think, I know so many people have those struggles, and I think it's really, if you haven't experienced, I think it's really hard for people to understand the kind of mental load of that, and how exhausting it is, and how unfair it is, and how it takes a chunk of you, of your core. So I think I would really just say to myself, like, you are going to be okay. Hold on, have some hope. Don't give up on
Literally.
yourself.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean go on another diet, Sarah. That
Yeah.
means,
Mm,
like,
mm.
and yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it? Gosh. Oh, you got me. You got me. I don't
Yeah.
know if this is worse than when you make me do loads of squats.
Yeah.
The room.
I
Or
envy you
Oh,
for today and your
punching,
gym.
which nearly killed
yeah.
me.
You'll be flying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Love it.
Sarah, thank you so much for
My
for
God.
for sharing
Yeah.
and your insights and like
And how you articulated your journey and your life previous is what so many people have felt, and are currently living. So I think this is going to be an
yeah.
epic episode
And
of our podcast.
Sarah, like I know you're not say out there like trying to be like a social media content creator, like shouting it from the hilltops about like weight loss and stuff like that, but equally I know from the conversations that we have had how powerful a voice you are, an advocate you are in your local spaces that you are in. And I think that is so important, because that's where real change happens,
Hmm.
in those offices, in those
Connections.
meetings, in those friend groups, in those things. That's where we truly break down bias and misunderstanding and stuff like that. So fair play on kind of that space that you're creating around you, because you don't know like the impact that can have on other friends, that it might be weight that they are struggling with, but that it might make them feel more vulnerable to talk about other things in their life. So yeah,
Mm.
thanks for being you in those spaces.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
You.
fab.
That's
Thanks
so
Yeah.
so
kind,
much,
and
Sarah.
just, I know I've said it a million times already, but seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for you two too, for all the advocacy, for being so vulnerable in public spaces, for all of the things that you've done that have helped me on my journey. like, honestly, you two are just so inspiring and amazing. I hope you know how much of an impact you've had on people's lives. Like, thank you.
Now you're gonna make me cry.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Seriously.
Oh.
Sarah, so much. Bless
And
you.
whenever we do finally get around to like an in-person episode off
Yeah.
the dose or something, we'll have to make sure that
Yeah.
that you
I
get
am
over, Sarah.
coming. I'm
Yeah.
coming to Ireland. I am
Well,
coming
I
Oh,
to
asked you,
Ireland.
didn't I? I asked you about a month ago, where exactly do you live? Because we were thinking about doing a meetup and stuff for the dose.
yeah.
You're definitely on the top of our invite list.
I'm
100%.
coming.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
point we will. Some point,
Yeah.
Belinda.
Please do. Please do.
No,
It'd
we're
be
going. We're
amazing.
going to. Yeah, we just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Time, money, time,
Busy.
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
Yeah.
All good.
But
Sarah,
thank you.
so
Sarah.
much.
Thank you so much.
You.
This podcast shares personal experiences only. It is not medical advice. Always speak with a qualified healthcare professional about your own healthcare decisions. Any treatments mentioned are part of personal stories and are not recommendations or promotion of any medicines.